Good morning. In China, heavy-duty electric trucks are very common. They're also inexpensive. In the United States and Europe, battery-powered equipment and vehicles are much more expensive than gas-fired engines. But in China, it tends to be the opposite. China is heavily dependent on fossil fuel imports, and because of the national security implications of that, the Chinese were strongly motivated to electrify their transportation networks. That was the catalyst for their snapping up the world's reserves of lithium and for building what are now monopolies, basically, on the raw materials and the refining for the supply chains of electric vehicles. Let's lead off with how much electric trucks cost here in China. These are factory direct prices. $25,000 or so for tractor trailers, box trucks in the high 30s. So right away we see that these prices are much lower than for comparable diesel models, and especially for diesel trucks in North America or Europe. There are a lot of tariffs and trade barriers against the direct import of this equipment. But there is a lot of US government money and subsidies and local environmental mandates, which are causing market disruptions also, which ironically favor Chinese suppliers and strongly encourage their getting around these rules. And it's hard to keep up with the scandalous revelations that are pouring out of Washington these days, as the public is finally seeing how our taxpayer money has been gushing out. Last week, we got another glimpse of that. The Climate Action Fund got a giant $7 billion upfront. The program was supposed to go through 2029, but the outgoing administration was just in a big hurry to get as much money out the door as fast as possible. The current EPA administrator is trying to claw back a lot of the money that flooded out. But what we want to zero in on here is a small piece of that $7 billion that went to this particular climate fund. $250 million was spent to buy electric trucks. The United Climate Fund will invest up to $250 million to purchase up to 500 Class 8 electric trucks, the largest single order of electric trucks in U.S. history. 500 trucks for $250 million is $500,000 per truck. Here are the Chinese prices once again. This is what their strategy is. Their CEO says that buying electric trucks are cost prohibitive for owner-operators and for small trucking companies. So their group will offer tax credits and financing to reduce the cost to trucking companies to make the conversion from diesel to electric. And another gusher of money is coming from the state of California. Drayage trucks are the ones that serve port operations, moving in and out of the ports. California law mandates that all those trucks be zero emissions trucks in 10 years. To speed that along, diesel trucks pay $10 into a clean truck fund for each TEU and $20 for a 40-foot container. So the state of California is building up that fund, plus owner-operators can get $40,000 in tax credits from the federal government to buy electric trucks. But here is the problem. Nobody builds these trucks in the United States yet at anywhere near the volumes that are needed. Over 5,000 trucks in California alone need to be converted right now under the emissions rules from 2010. China is the only mass producer of electric trucks in the world. What California and the Climate United people could do, if they wanted, was call up one of these factories in China and order trucks for $50,000 or so instead of for $500,000. But that's not what they're doing. Mr. Grossman here at Climate United has a plan to finance the buys of electric trucks and build a residual market for electric trucks, while keeping the residual value of the trucks for the Climate United Fund. Real financiers come in and lend against this structure. The environmental fund will buy the trucks and absorb the risk of the market falling so that financiers will come in and lend against other trucks. This is yet another example of a market that is enormous, the trucking industry in the United States, where these real financiers see giant rent-seeking profits if only they can get some electric trucks built in the US so they can cash in a $40,000 federal subsidy, plus this taxpayer-funded private equity group guaranteeing against any principal losses on the value of the trucks over time. Making the math work, the residual value remains with us. Who is us and who is this math working for? This is taxpayer money. This should make every one of us furious, by the way, and this is not capitalism. I don't know what we should call it, but free market capitalism for sure ain't it. It's a handful of people getting rich, risk-free, off the backs of truck drivers and people who build equipment and taxpayers. There is a real market, and it will work if we get all these people out of the way. There is a real market right now for high-quality electric trucks that can replace diesel if the batteries work and if the vehicles can survive the heavy day-to-day use. Windrose is a Chinese company which has recently announced plans to build an assembly plant in the United States, in Georgia. The tariff situation on Chinese heavy trucks is much more favorable compared to that on Chinese electric cars. Windrose's battery is good for 250 miles of range and about 30 minutes of charging. Windrose last year completed a comprehensive series of tests in Europe and in the United States. This bullet here is important. The calculated energy savings for truck operators is $41,000 per year. We'll come back to that later. In May of last year, the Windrose truck crossed Europe and in June conducted a coast-to-coast test in the United States. These tests were performed in varied, extreme conditions over the Alps in Europe and in the hottest deserts in the western United States. Windrose finished the tests, crunched the numbers, and realized a cost savings of $411 per 1,000 miles, which is over $40,000 a year. Tesla also sees a big market based on that math. Tesla is building a factory to produce Class 8 semi-trailers in Nevada, and they're already pushing the total cost of ownership as the main draw for buyers. They forecast the Tesla Semi to price at $180,000 minus the $40,000 federal incentive, which brings the initial outlay to $140,000. That stacks up nicely against the cost of a diesel truck, but it's in the fuel savings where Tesla pays for itself. Total cost after 5 years for the Tesla is $310,000 versus over $500,000 for a diesel truck. Looking at the second row of this table, energy fuel cost over 5 years. The difference is $165,000, which over 5 years is $30,000 per year. Windrose in their tests shows slightly higher savings at $41,000 per year. So that's the market. That's what owner-operators are going to see, that these trucks pay for themselves after 5 years just from the energy savings alone. Whatever residual value there is on the financing side is just free equity for the owner-operator or for the truck company. And that's what these environmental groups and their friends on Wall Street have figured out. It's free equity, and they hope to grab it for themselves, make money on the loan origination, on the interest payments, and then on the residual value at the end of the term. Anyway, Tesla and Windrose are getting their factories built. Tesla in Reno, Nevada, and Windrose in Georgia. The capacity of the Tesla plant will be 50,000 per year eventually. Musk says that the demand for their semi is ridiculous, and the trucks they've given out, the operators don't want to give them back. Windrose already has an order book for 6,500 units. Windrose will build a chassis and other parts here in China for final assembly in the United States, which will get around the tariffs there. Electrek's conclusion is here that across the entire electric vehicle market, China offers solid products to challenge Western automakers. And this is how markets are supposed to work. Tesla and Windrose and some more that will come over soon enough, they will compete on the basis of technology and service and value. There's nothing complicated here about this formula. And from one capitalist to a few thousand others who are watching, I do hope that Tesla and Windrose are already working on ways for their customers to finance these trucks so Tesla and Windrose and their customers can keep the money for themselves. This is Baoqiu Tower in Hangzhou, Zhejiang province. Be good. The governors and kings and presidents. We ask for a revival in this part of the world. That your children, that your church are empowered to go and make disciples of this nation and all nations. Thank you for sending your Son, Jesus, to die for us and to live for us. We bind up the evil spirits of Islam, of Hinduism,